jump the gun and get it done. We gon' stir the pot just for fun. Take it to the top and hit the sun. Watch the waterfall, let it run. This is what I came to do. This kid ain't afraid to lead a stew. Spread my wings, fly and lead a coop. Life is just a big bowl of soup. You already know that I'm pouring a cup, and then I'm packing a bowl, and now I'm lighting it up. I'm bringing the heat, I'm searing the cut. So if you want beef, then I'm searing it up. She bringing the funk, a little tease the talk. I ain't a punk, I give her what she want. She bringing the funk, a little tease the talk. But I ain't a punk, I give her what she want. Come on. Till I die, light another spliff and get high. She just wants to party with the guys. Came with her friends on the fly. Funky little lady caught my eye. Brought my best game, can't be shy. She emptied my tank, the whole supply. Never kiss and tell to the guys. You already know, I'ma keep it a bug. I'ma play my cards till I run out of love. I'ma dive right in it like a lake with a duck. I'ma put it on my plate and start eating it up, yeah. I'ma take a bite out of crime because there ain't no way that you can stop the shine. Come on! I'ma say it one more time. There is no way that you can stop the shine. What up? I'm so blind and I'm fashionably late for the date with perfect timing. I'm making no sense cause I'm bent and I'm just rhyming. I'm high as a cloud above the ground. I'm ever climbing. I'm Jesus, would you believe it? Yes, I doubt it until I make wine flow out of a water fountain. Seeing's believing and there ain't no way around it. Or maybe it's just that I'm high as a fucking mountain. Our powers combine, we turn water to wine. We become divine and turn water to wine. Destinies intertwined. We become divine when our powers combine. Water to wine. Water to wine. I said I'm wildin' up on the island, combining powers. Hybrid flowers, rolling kush up with the sour. Sitting high, standing tall, I'm like a tower. A superhero, honey badger, coming for cowards. Our powers combine, we turn water to wine. I ain't saving everybody, that's a waste of my time. If I catch a villain slipping, I just creep from behind. I pop an arrow in his neck and one more in his spine. When our powers combine, we turn water to wine. We become divine and turn water to wine. When our powers combine, we become divine and turn water into wine. Water to wine. One more time.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. So soon, doing back-to-back episodes with none other than the great David Freese. David, my dude, how are you?
I'm doing mighty fine, my friend. Mighty fine. We're talking about movie. We're talking about Spider-Man. How can I be bad, my friend? How can I be bad?
I'm with you there, man. I'm with you there. It's an exciting movie where you certainly have no shortage of things to talk about. But we should give a shout out to those who make this all possible. The ones like yourself, David, who are the sages of the lodge. Those who donate as little as $1 a month to help keep this train rolling. Gas ain't cheap. Anyway, Sages of the Lodge, big shout out to Charlotte Astry, Alex Pamal, David Freese, Chris Perkowski, Maria Palmieri, Shane Driscoll, Scott Castellano, Jillian Eason, Corey Barchat, Andrew Parker, Twilight Blaze, Nick Toborski, Kevin McBride, Henry Rudmeitza, Michael Fay, Richard Arnold, Andrew Clay, Brendan Abrams, Gaseous Snake, Orpheus Joshua, and our newest Sage of the Lodge, Brady Burleson. Man, I am so gratuitous that the list is that long that it eats up like the first 2-3 minutes of the fucking episode every time now. But I really do feel blessed. So major shout out to all you who make this possible. Also, quick shout out, newest follower over on Twitch is the Wasp King 00. Welcome aboard, my friend. You seem to come over from the tournament that my buddy Treehouse hosted yesterday, which was awesome. So thanks for following Wasp King. And now, without further ado, David, it's time that we get into Spider-Man. That's what everybody's here for. That's what you and I are here for. We did an episode last week, and you and I were sold on seeing the film. It was no question you and I were both interested enough to go and see this film. But we had some concerns. And we laid out a checklist of things that needed to happen in order for us to walk away truly satisfied with this film. Now, David, I figure we could both give some opening statements about the film before we talk about the likes and dislikes. But as a rough intro, did it meet the check marks for you?
So yeah, just also putting out a blanket statement. Spoiler.
Yes, big spoilers. Big fucking spoilers. I'm going to put it in the chat. Big spoilers. All episode. Okay. Good job. See, this is why I like you. This is why I like having you on, Dave.
I gotcha. All right, so really the best part of the movie was how they used hologram technology to bring out that cameo by Macho Man Randy Savage, just to say his one line, and it just brought me right into here. So he's ready. It was the best part of the movie, but seriously, it did 100% check every moment, every little thing on my list. And I gotta say, I did like the movie. It won me over. It's nowhere near a perfect movie.
Of course not.
I would not say it's number one my favorite Spider-Man movie, but we'll go so far as to say I loved them.
You love the movie. Okay, so it's sitting well with you, because when I first spoke to you about it, you said you really, really, really liked it, not sure you love it. Yep. But after it sat and marinated for a day or two, you're here saying you love it. So let's just give a general consensus. Where do you rank it among Spider-Man films? Just to give the audience a further idea of where you'll be coming from in this episode.
Gotcha. So I'll give you my top. Well, I'll tell you it's number 4. Tell you why it's number 4. Because Into the Spider-Verse will still be number 1. It was the first one to bring all the Spider-Man into it. Great Miles Morales story. Watch it if you haven't watched it.
Agreed.
It's just one of those great films. It perfectly captures the comic book aesthetic that it goes for. Wonderful. And then Spider-Man 1 and 2. Got to give it up to them. I'll put 2 above Spider-Man 1. I'll put 2 here, 1 here. But either or, those are both phenomenal movies. I watched Spider-Man 1 the day after because I was just so amped. And what else? And then I'd go right after that, this movie, Far From Home. or No Way Home.
No Way Home. Gotcha. Okay. I have a similar list. I would actually rank it number 4 among Spider-Man films for me, but I want to make clear that's a very strong number 4. Like there's a clear, we were talking about this in the pre-roll, there's a clear gap between this movie and the movies that are not as good as it. It's really up here, as Boobatonic is saying in the chat, movie was still cream of the crop. As far as comic book movies go as of late, definitely cream of the crop. What's up? What's going on, Joe? Good to have you in here. But I definitely rank it number 4, but my list is a little different than yours. I've got Spider-Man 2 with Tobey, Sam Raimi as my number 1. Spider-Man 1 is number 2. Into the Spider-Verse is number 3. And then, like, at a very strong number 4 is Spider-Man No Way Home. I came out of that movie liking it a lot more than I thought I would. Like, I was pretty confident going into it that I would come away satisfied. I wasn't confident that I'd be able to rank this above all of Tom Holland's previous films. This is the best Tom Holland Spider-Man. And rank it above...
by far.
By far the best Holland Spider-Man. I couldn't agree more. It is by far and away the best Tom Holland Spider-Man film. And I liked it more than all the Garfield movies, too. So it really separates itself. It gets to hang up there with the Raimi movies and Into the Spider-Verse. So
it is like also an Amazing Spider-Man number 3. It's also Spider-Man 4. It's kind of that as well.
Yeah, it does kind of work that way too.
It closed those little loose ends that we had from each of them.
Gotcha.
Especially with Garfield, but we'll talk about that.
We'll talk about that. I think we should lead with what we loved about the film. Before we say, because I'll say this: I liked and loved a lot more than I didn't like. I want to make that clear.
Me too.
But I'd be being disingenuous if I didn't express some of the problems I had with the film, much as I did enjoy it. But with that said, let's start with what you said: tying up loose ends. This movie really made a point to do that, not just with Holland Spider-Man, but with Garfield Spider-Man. And I think in many ways, because they created this vehicle where Garfield Spider-Man could sort of conclude his own arc and have his redemption, it allowed Andrew Garfield to steal the show in many ways. To remind all of you, Garfield was a good Spider-Man.
He was.
Garfield was not the problem with his movies.
Not
it was
even
just
the
fucking
slightest.
Everything else.
Right.
Garfield had the chops for the role, and also it looked to me like Garfield had the most fun. Like in the movie.
He looked like he was having a blast.
Yeah.
It was one of those things where like you could tell he's doing these other serious movies and stuff. And then he came into this and it was like, you know what? Let me just fucking have fun with this one. Let me just do what I gotta do, be the Spider-Man that I know I can be, and do it in a good movie.
I will say that I think, and this might steal the show as my favorite, like, sort of scene in the film, because it's the scene that, like, made me laugh the most, but also kind of gave me that comic book movie spark again, is when Toby and Andrew are kind of having a back and forth. Andrew's like, "Nah, man, I'm lame. I'm lame." And then Toby's just like, "You can't be talking that way, man. Let's get you up here, okay? You're amazing.
You're amazing." Yeah,
I want to hear you
so
say it.
meta.
I want to hear you say it. It's just, and all those sorts of moments that happen in the film. Like, I like that the film, especially once the other Spider-Man showed up, really took its time getting to the conclusion. Like the scene with the 3 of them working in the laboratory. Like that's what I wanted going into this movie. Like that's the kind of
and the
stuff
fact that
I
Toby
want.
was like, he goes, they're trying to figure out who's doing what and taking care of what villain, and he's like, I've been thinking about way to reverse this Goblin formula for years now.
Yes.
They put that time into it. They put that thought into it that, you know what? That Peter Parker is one of those characters that very much relies on that guilt. And of course, this many years later, he would still have so much guilt of what he did to Norman, who was like a father to him, and what that in consequence did to Harry and their relationship.
Who was like a brother to him.
When he brought up Harry, it was like, oh.
Yeah, he was devastated.
I held him in my arms when he died.
Yeah.
Oh.
So good. Well, we were talking about this too, right? Like, one of the things I thought this movie did very well is it didn't act like time stood still. like the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man and the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man who showed up, it's not as if we picked them up right where we left off. As you implied, where Tobey was like, yeah, I've been working on this formula for years. This was a Spider-Man who continued being Spider-Man, whose story never stopped happening, that continued moving forward and was trying to redeem himself for the sins of his past. Whether he should blame himself for the fall of the Osborns is another story.
Exactly.
But at the end of the day, that's who Peter is. He sort of inherits that guilt. He takes responsibility for what happened.
With great power comes great responsibility. And we got it finally in this movie.
Thank God, because one of the things I didn't like about the Holland films is it essentially acted like Uncle Ben didn't exist. Right. Not that it outright did that, but it definitely very much felt that way. And that the fact that the way Tom Holland learned his lesson in this film was not just through spoiler, not just through Aunt May's death, but it's that in Aunt May's, the idea that even when someone is gone, what they stood for could live on. It's what someone stands for that lives on, after somebody
He never
passes.
had that consequence that
exactly
Tobey or Garfield had.
Right.
They never had that moment where fuck, I could have done something and I just didn't.
And just exactly.
And
go ahead.
And this finally does it for him.
Yep.
And not that he could have necessarily saved her at this point, but that was if he wasn't Spider-Man, none of this would be happening right now. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
He put his family, his friends, everyone into this situation where there's just no winning. And we'll talk about this later too, but the decision at the end to where they leave it off in this at the last 5 minutes of the movie, when I said last week that if he makes the choice to have everyone forget about him and he's got to start from scratch, it would win me over. That did not just win me over because I was already won over at that point, but that just put it over the edge for me that all right, now this is Spider-Man.
Well, this
is Spider-Man.
This is what
it was an origin movie.
Exactly. It's
basically an origin movie.
The whole movie was so self-aware of what it was and what its issues were. Before we keep going, I just want to catch up on the chat because Landy120 drops in with, I heard Ned just starts eating mashed potatoes during the final battle against Rob Lowe. Which, look, we knew this was a spoiler cast, but we're not trying to have that big of spoilers, man.
Whoa, come on. Rob Lowe? No one knew he was going to be in this.
Rob Lowe is Spider-Man? And then we got Charlotte who says, Andrew Garfield made the movie, in parentheses, Toby too. I will say the movie definitely is elevated when they show up. That is for sure.
100%.
Whether that's my nostalgia kicking in or not is up to you.
But come on, that scene where he gets redemption when MJ is falling.
It's the best scene in the film.
And then he catches her. 100%.
That's the part that choked me up.
In the movie.
That's the part that choked me up. I didn't cry during
and you
Spider-Man
could see
No
on
Way
his
Home.
face.
Yes.
Oh my God, he was
so
holding
good.
back the tears.
So good. Nah, dude, it
that
choked me up.
catharsis of all right, I saved not my love, but Peter's love.
Well, not only that too, what I love so much about that is if you can recall the scene in the laboratory, right? Where Toby's kind of talking to Andrew Garfield, and Andrew Garfield asks about his love life, and he explains, well, it's complicated, but we make it work, MJ and I. We're together.
Yeah.
And he sort of just says, it sort of gives Garfield this idea that even though he lost Gwen, it's like, there is a future love waiting for you. Look, he's got his MJ, I've got my MJ. It's only a matter of time until you get your MJ. And it's not only about whether or not he will get his MJ, he showed himself he would have the strength and ability to save her. That he has,
and that's a huge thing in the comics too.
Yeah,
after Gwen dies in the comics, he's, as you could imagine, fucked up for a long time. Mm-hmm. And it's a big a through line for the comics for a while, and especially, I don't know if I can get it, but there's a story called Spider-Man Blue by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. They're the people who did The Long Halloween. They went over to Marvel and did a color series. And what Spider-Man Blue is it's basically years in the future after Gwen dies, and every year on Gwen's birthday or on the anniversary of death, Peter Parker basically goes up into his attic and cries and goes through like recorders and like, I remember you when this and this, and but it's okay because at the end you see him fall for Mary Jane and there's that whole thing. But the very poignant moment at the end is where Mary Jane comes up to the attic and she sees that he's crying and he's like, I know I missed, she says, I know it's her birthday. I miss her too. Tell her I miss her too. And there's that cathartic moment where you didn't get that in Amazing Spider-Man 2. And this acted as if it was the Amazing Spider-Man 3, where it addressed that catharsis that he needed, that relief, and that someone acknowledges it, and he acknowledges it himself.
Dude, couldn't have said it better myself. It's part of staying true to the character and giving Andrew that sort of resolve. Like, again, look, my boy Andy Brew is in the chat saying Andrew saving MJ, that was the moment that made me legit weep. And yeah, for me, that was the emotional climax of the film. Not that the scene, that finishing scene with Tom and MJ was beautiful too. I'm just personally a little more attached to Andrew's Spider-Man. But seeing him save MJ, again, lump in the throat, big old lump in the throat. Just because Andrew sold it so well.
He's a wonderful actor. He really is.
Spider-Man has never had a bad actor fill the suit. All three of them are very talented actors in their own right. But, something else this movie did do well is it did have a good sense of identity, especially in its symbolism, because all of this was about a second chance. That's what the whole thing is about. Whether you're talking about Garfield's ability to save MJ, whether you're talking about Tom Holland and the way the movie ends, and that
he acts his ass off too. Tom Holland acts his fucking ass off.
Absolutely.
There was not a single moment in that movie where I didn't believe that he was wholeheartedly in the character. He was feeling that shit when he was on that roof, pissed off after Aunt May. You could fucking feel it.
Yeah,
you saw his face red, anger. That scene where he almost, spoiler, kills Green Goblin was
raw,
so,
dude. That was raw. And that was,
God.
Let me tell you something, that final little fight sequence where Tom is just bare knuckling Goblin in the face. I'm like,
God.
Listen to me.
Ever loving shit out of him.
But it's like, listen to me. This is so much better than any CGI stunt you could pull. This kind of action, you feel the punches. When it's a beam or it's a special effect or it's some sort of fucking like cosmic thing, you don't really feel it. But when Tom is laying his knuckles into his face, you feel the rage.
Willem Dafoe is acting his ass off too. He's he's really fucking going with it.
Well, my boy Joe's in the chat saying Willem Dafoe stole the show from me. He stole the show among the villains. He stole the show among the villains. Which, look,
not to say Doc Ock wasn't fucking great too.
Doc Ock was fantastic. Doc Ock was fantastic, but Dafoe was a whole other level, man. A whole other level.
That fucking scene where they first bring the villains back to the apartment and everything's kind of going right, and then slowly but surely everything starts falling apart, and then the sound like kind of cuts out, and it's almost as if anyone had like one of those moments where they're having like a almost a panic attack, and like the sound like is everything's all muffled, you can't really concentrate, and he's like, no, he's in an and then he finds out that, oh my God, that he goes after Norman. He's like, and I was like, no fucking way! I lost my shit.
Oh my God!
You knew it was gonna happen, but the way that it happened, it kept you like, oh my God, oh shit! Like everything's falling apart right now. Things were going so good, and now everything's getting fucked.
Yep. It's almost like almost the reverse of night is darkest before dawn. It's like,
right.
It's like almost that reverse effect. That's something that was interesting to me too. That the villains weren't like, oh, here's the thing. If I'm being honest, Lizard and Sandman didn't need to be in this movie.
Yeah, no.
They didn't need to be in this movie. It was cool they were there.
What it
that was
did
fine,
for me,
but I was just gonna say Goblin,
was like,
Ock,
yeah.
and Electrode were really the only ones that really had anything going on. And that's the other thing.
Yeah, they capture the lizard off screen.
Yeah,
Doctor Strange does it off like we didn't even know he could talk. They were like, we didn't even know you could talk because he has no lines for like the first half hour that he's in the movie. Fucking great. But that scene where they cure Doc Ock and he's like freaking out about it. And I also like they did that like undercut of like in the trailer. They were making it seem, Doc Ock's getting the nanotech. He's going to be more badass. They flip it on its head, and he's like, I can control you now. And it was like that little snarky Spider-Man that you need. Well, because
he's using outdated tech. He made that shit in 2005, 2006, bro. It's 2021. Catch up with the times, Doc Ock. Yeah, no, that was very cool too. Solid. I mean, the movie really started to pick up when the villains showed up. It's like almost as the universes started bleeding in, the movie was picking up more and more. There's some talk I see of like who everyone's favorite Spider-Man is. Now, we had you rank your Spider-Man movies at the start of this chat, but I'm actually curious, having listened to you speak, where do you rank the cinematic Spider-Men?
Well, we can't count Into the Spider-Verse because they're
we're talking live action. We're talking live action.
Because there is something about B. Parker in that movie where he's like a kind of like depressed, like middle-aged.
I like that, Peter.
Dude, yeah, but in terms of,
and I'm not looking for comic accuracy. I'm looking for your personal taste.
My personal. It's still Toby first. And I'm still going to put Andrew Garfield second. I always liked him especially as Spider-Man.
As Spider-Man,
the way he quipped, he got that like.
He also had the coolest suit.
Talk your ass off.
I also felt Garfield had the coolest suit among all the Spider-Men.
I'd agree with that. I don't know. His eyes are a little weird for me. The eyes are like really big and wide. I don't know, but there's nothing like it for me besides the original Spider-Man suit, like those first three movies. Like that's iconic, and I know it's kind of dated, but
no, it holds up, bro. It holds up.
Iconic.
It was a DLC outfit in the Spider-Man PS4 game. It still holds up. It's staying with the culture, bro. It's staying with the culture. I hate how similar our lists are because I feel like if we just disagreed, that could fracture into a lot of different conversations. But I legit have the same opinions as you. Tobey is my favorite Spider-Man. Garfield is number 2. I really feel like Garfield doesn't get the credit he deserves. And Tom Holland at no fault of his own is number 3. Because here's the thing. I don't think Tom Holland's ever gotten a fair shot, including this film. Because there's not one movie Tom Holland gets that isn't littered with other superstar heroes. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like whether it be Iron Man or Doctor Strange or two
Mysterio,
other Spider-Men, Nick Fury, the other Spider-Men. Like he's never gotten
seen him just be the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
But that's what this movie does. Right. That's what this movie accomplishes. We finally have a chance to just let him be the neighborhood Spider-Man. No more intergalactic wizard courting, dimension hopping, fucking no more neighborhood Spider-Man. Bring him back to his roots. And again, you know what? With Tom Holland not getting a fair shot, it's like we talked about. When his movie starts, like he's living in a nice, like suburban looking home.
Right.
Aunt May's young and healthy and attractive, and you know, he has a best friend. Like
fucking Tony Stark comes in and gives him the opportunity of a fucking lifetime.
Yeah, he has a billionaire backing him. Like, yeah, no, it's like he's like, where's the struggle? Where's the struggle? This is what Peter Parker's about, is the struggle. And like you said, this movie gave that to him. When he's sitting on the roof and you could see the rage in his face, it's like, see, he can do it. He can hold it down on his own. And let me tell you something. I've never gotten really excited for a Tom Holland Spider-Man movie. With the exception of this one, because I knew Toby and Andrew were going to be in it. But this whole idea that Tom Holland is going to go into a world where nobody remembers who he is. He doesn't have Uncle Ben. He doesn't have Aunt May. He doesn't even get, like...
He doesn't have friends either.
He doesn't have friends.
Doesn't know
and Iron Man is dead. And Iron Man is dead. And it's like, good.
Which that's another thing I want to talk about.
Put the weight of the world on this guy's shoulders. That's what Spider-Man is about. And now I'm like, hey, you know what? Now for the next Tom Holland Spider-Man movie, I'm listening. I don't know if you could put my butt in the seat, but now I'm listening.
Oh, yeah, now I'm paying attention. Now I'm really invested.
Especially
even
since,
at the end.
Go ahead.
Where he leaves off in the apartment. They just had like such awareness that they knew exactly what like would make people happy.
Yep.
Where he's in the apartment from Spider-Man 2, where like Peter is down on his luck, he's missing his bills and shit.
Yep.
I was upset we didn't get that cameo of the guy. Where's my rent money? But we'll get it.
Mr. Dickovich.
Yeah.
Say, you are good woman.
Dickovich.
I am good man.
I'm good man. Oh my
Fucking
god, fucking great.
Fucking great. But no, like the movie, I'll say this, and this is another thing, me just being as genuine I can about how I felt. I thought the first act of the film was mediocre. I didn't dislike it, but it felt like your run-of-the-mill Marvel film. It felt like, I'm not trying to be too overly critical here, but it felt very much like all right, here's another one. But then, again, you got to give movies time to set themselves up. Then the stakes start to get established. Because you know what? When not getting into MIT are the stakes, I'm like, Peter's been through fucking worse. Yeah. I know you didn't get into MIT, but Peter's been through worse. But as the movie goes on, things start to escalate. And I feel like, again, this movie was so self-aware because one of my favorite parts of Act 1 was his interactions with Doctor Strange. And I felt like people feel this was a throwaway line when he's like, you came to me before you went to the board of MIT? Because that shows you, like, that's not just some, like, funny line. It shows you Tom Holland's Spider-Man problem. Like, he keeps relying on some authority to come bail him out with their magic or their science or their money. He's just always looking for this father figure to come in. And it's funny because at the end of the day, the lesson is you have to look into yourself. But in order for Tom Holland's Spider-Man to understand that, the literal older versions of himself had to bleed into his reality and give him that wisdom. Yep. And it's stuff like that where I'm like, there's some brains in here. There's some brains to this stuff. This is cool. But, you know, again, Act 1 I felt was a little mediocre. Act 2 had me like, okay, this is fun. And Act 3 was like, yes, this is everything. Yeah,
every moment in Act 3 was like the best.
No, there wasn't a dull moment.
Well, I'll give it one
hour
moment.
Of the film. No, not a dull moment. The whole final hour.
The one moment that really got me in, and we talked about this in the pre-roll, that got me in that first act was with Daredevil. I watched all 3 seasons of that show. Matt Murdock, and that's it. You know for a fact that it's the same Daredevil from show. Like it's spinning in it, and when the guy throws the brick in and he catches it, I was like, all right, I'm in for this. That's cool. I really like that. Do I wish he kind of also suited up to kind of be, but there was no place for it. It wasn't time for that.
Exactly. The movie was crowded.
Hopefully in the future we could get an actual like Matt Murdock Spider-Man team up. That'd be really cool. But because they're very close in the comics. They work together all the time.
That, and one of the prospects I see of the future of this film is like, I'm going to be pissed if you make everybody forget who Spider-Man is and you're just going to let the Avengers bleed back in and start to do that. No, let's really explore the Spider-Man universe. There's so many characters. Look, you could do overlaps with Daredevil. You could do overlaps with, with fucking, I can't think of it. Who else does he overlap with a lot in like in the Spider-Verse?
He is the Fantastic Four often, especially Johnny Storm. He overlaps with I think the White Tiger, but that's a whole other thing. Nova, I know he's close with Nova, but it really is Daredevil. There have been runs where he's like with Deadpool too. But apparently
that's what I was
Ryan
looking for.
Reynolds
Deadpool. That's what I was looking for. Daredevil and Deadpool.
Yes.
Like, they're part of that Spider-Verse. Like, it's and like all the other characters, like Black Cat and like all these villains were yet to explore. It's like there's a lot in like. Listen, I'm old enough to remember when Spider-Man was top of the line Marvel. When Spider-Man was fucking king. He was the biggest draw Marvel had. The biggest draw Marvel had. And that's
in
still
a lot of
the
ways
case.
he still is.
Still is.
But now they're finally acknowledging that, you know what, we need to bring him back to the character that he's supposed to be. And the reason why
second chances.
Right. The reason why he is that biggest character is because of all the things that they acknowledge in this movie, where he needs that responsibility. He needs to be fucking down on his luck.
Yeah.
He needs to be doing all that shit on his own. He needs to balance that life of being Spider-Man, but also being present for his family and friends and shit. And I honestly, were there things that annoyed me? Yes, but I don't know how I would have done it myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, at the same time, I'm with you there. Well, there were things that, like, I could have done without, and there are things I feel very critical about. At the end of the day, I wasn't looking for the Godfather. I'm not. It's not what I came here for. I came here for what we got to see in Act 3. Those final 45 minutes to an hour, that's what I came for. And let me just say something. Let me just say something, because I feel like we gotta, we're putting Holland's Spider-Man movies at the bottom. We put Holland as the number 3 Spider-Man. We got to throw this guy some bones. I'll tell you this. He can sell a death scene.
Oh, yeah.
He can sell a death.
Anytime
the Aunt May
tell him
death
to act,
scene
he does.
was intense. And oh my God, Marissa Tomei did so good. The way she kept saying, like, I just got to catch my breath. It's like, she's fading. You know what I mean? You could feel it. And you could see that, like, Tom is kind of in denial about it at the same time, even though, like, you could clearly pick.
I didn't think they were going to do it.
They had to.
She was getting up and she was walking around. They had to at that point. She got hit by the fucking glider. If she just got up, once she started getting up and walking over to him, I was like, she's going to live that?
Yeah.
How is she living that?
Dude, no, sorry. I had like an internal struggle where I'm like, I don't want her to die, but it would be kind of dumb if she survived this. I don't want her to die, but it would be kind of dumb if she's. I was just in this constant pull until I'm like, okay, she's dying. She's gone.
Yep.
But they did.
She sold it too. She was great.
And
her version of the great power, great responsibility line was awesome.
Well, what was so powerful about that is, again, like, that was a big part of the lesson of the film, is like, that's what survives you, is what you stood for. You may die one day, you may be gone, but what you stood for is what's going to live on. It was all so good, man. Like, honestly, the acting chops, we haven't seen the acting chops like this in an MCU movie in a long time. Between fucking Willem Dafoe selling you on basically being a schizo, Doc Ock having
that scene where he's pocketing those donuts, fucking cracking me up.
So good.
Right. And thank God he broke that helmet too, because you could see his outfit, how it changed, his suit with the tattered up fucking purple hoodie. Totally worked for me.
Very cool.
Totally worked for me.
Okay, David. I think maybe it's time we could talk a little bit about our criticisms of the film.
Can I just say one more positive?
Sure. No, 100%. Just
one last positive.
And we'll swing back, dude. We'll swing back into the positivity when we're done. But
I wanted to also just Benedict Cumberbatch did fucking great.
He always does, though.
He was fucking great. And his relationship with him was like, save the fucking universe together. Fucking, I respect
he felt the true bonding experience. He felt truly bonded to him. He felt truly bonded to Peter. Hey,
And
Marcus,
what you
Devil
also
May Cry.
remember-
Thank you for that follow, my dude. But yeah, no, he felt genuinely bonded to him. And like, it's funny how like at the end, when all the other villains were kind of starting to bleed through, it's like he didn't even consider the idea of erasing Peter from everyone's memories. He's like, no. He's like, wait, no, we got to figure out a way around that. But then showing my bias. Peter Parker basically was like, no, this is what I have to do. This is
what we have to do.
This is what we have to do. And I will say another positive thing. Zendaya and Tom Holland have a great chemistry.
Oh, yeah.
The two of them. They really do have a great chemistry. But yeah, I think it's time. Seeing how positive you and I felt about the film, you know, we both. I've got way more positive things to say than negative, and we'll probably get right back into it.
We were
after
literally
that.
just gushing about it for what?
40 minutes we've been
Half
gushing
hour,
over the
45
film.
minutes,
We've been
right.
gushing over the film for 40 minutes. But again, we'd be being disingenuous if in our review of this movie we didn't bring up some of our criticisms. David, would you like to take the lead? If you don't want to, I'd be happy to give out one of my biggest criticisms.
You go first. I started first with the positive, so you start with the negative.
Okay. Ned.
Ah, I knew you were gonna go there.
Honestly, my biggest problem with the film, because I look, no disrespect to the actor, make that fucking money, dude, cash that check. Like it's just that like he just sucks the life out of the scenes.
Perfect. He serves no purpose, and the fact that I have a little bit of magic. Oh, I can do portals now. Get the fuck out of here. Do you remember in Doctor Strange when he was like, I'm sorry, I'm still in your fucking whole Ned spiel.
No, you're good. You're good.
When in Doctor Strange, that moment where he actually finally makes the portal is like a big moment for him. He's learned. He's just like, oh, I have magic now. And he's making portals. Come on, where's the?
I would have rathered MJ got the ring personally, but I felt like they really felt like
Ned
they
not
needed
existing at all.
They really, the thing is, dude, they had to give him something to do. That's where I'm willing to be understanding. They had to give him something to do.
The worst character in the movie. I can't say that either because fucking Flash Thompson was fucking
but Flash
horrible
Thompson
too.
wasn't around for a while at the end of the day. He was in like 2 scenes. I don't like the Flash Thompson angle either, but he's in 2 scenes. Ned was with us for the whole film. And like when they're in the interrogation scene and he's just like, yeah, Spider-Man's my friend. I helped him do all this stuff. It's like, is there no part of him that understands he's in captivity? Like it just seemed, it seemed like they didn't know.
He's not that. He's trying to get into MIT. He can't be that.
He can't be that stupid.
He cannot be that dumb.
No. I mean, I see we have Charlotte says maybe I'm just a hater, but I think MIT stuff would have hit harder if it was just Tom and MJ. Yeah, I think this whole movie hits harder if it's just Tom and MJ, just because their chemistry is great, and you felt the romantic, like not struggle, but the romantic jive between the two. Andy Brew says, yeah, Ned, especially in this movie, felt like he was just kind of there. Yeah, because he was just kind of there. And
like,
go ahead.
Every one of his Spider-Man movies too. One of these MCU Spider-Man movies, he's just kind of there. He doesn't really do.
You know, I made this comparison last night. You know what Ned is?
What is he?
If Harry Osborn was Gary Oak, Ned is your modern day Pokemon rival. No edge, no competition, no conflict, no hitting on his girl, no, just soft, nothing. Soft and like, no. I don't
soft,
know.
Like, I'll do whatever you want. There's part of me that hopes that in the future they go for it, that like he's just fucking, he wants to fuck Tom Holland. And if they make him gay and like that was the whole thing, I could buy it. But there's no way if he's straight, and this is coming as a gay man. I mean, look.
Well, you got the eye for it. You have the gaydar, David.
Right.
You've got a gaydar. If it beeps, it beeps.
Right. And you don't have someone this dedicated and this like hanging like if it wasn't like a little bit like that. You know, there's a little bit of
I'll say this, Dave, with Tom out of the picture, he's still friends with MJ.
Yeah.
You know? It's just he didn't go and get a new you know, he couldn't replace Peter. But
why do you want to be friends with him anyway? What draws you to him?
Oh God.
He's dumb. He falls into traps. Oh, come on. That scene at the end. And this we didn't I specifically held off in the pre-roll where they remember how they're at the place, they have the box or the MacGuffin or whatever it is.
Yeah, the little box, yeah.
And he's like, all right, let's go back to Doctor Strange's place. And they go back in and then he can't shut it. Which, okay, fine. He can't shut it. He's not a master of magic. Fine. But when Tom Holland and the Lizard go into the lab, they decide it's a good idea to run back through the portal where all the dangerous shit is happening. That took me so far out of the movie because you know that's just, oh yeah, they have to be there at the end. That's the reason why. Why would you bring the thing that they're looking for through the magic portal that they can't even get through?
No, you're not wrong.
In the opposite direction. You run in the opposite direction. You don't go towards the danger. You go away. Look out of here. And there's this is an entire room with presumably a door to the outside. Why would you go through the one fucking thing that brings you back into this fucking shit show? Look, I'm sorry, that one moment just so pissed me off.
David, legitimate criticism. I have to hand it to you. I guess I'm a little more easily forgiving. I don't like it, but this clearly really bothered you. I don't blame you.
And he's like holding her hand, pulling her through. Like, come on. You cannot be that stupid.
You cannot. I'm look, at times the movie's logic kind of gets some egg on its face. You know, like we were talking about before. Like if Peter Parker just sat and thunk for another 5 minutes, his wish wouldn't have been, hey, I want everyone to forget that I'm Spider-Man, and then start like cherry picking people to leave out of the spell. Instead, he would have been like, can you make everyone forget Mysterio's broadcast? And then like everyone that he wanted to know would still know, and then everyone he didn't want to know wouldn't know. But so like the movie did kind of insist on him not thinking of that. And I'm a fucking idiot. Like I'm an idiot. And I thought of that. So genius Peter Parker can definitely think of it.
100%.
But I'm willing to get past that. Like the movie needs to set itself up. We need a scenario that brings the other Peter Parkers and the villains in. Right. I wish it could be a little more clean cut, but I understand that we can suspend our disbelief a little bit to make this, at its core, ridiculous thing happen. And I say ridiculous to its credit, by the way. Ridiculous does not mean bad.
Yeah.
The comic book medium is full of ridiculous shit. If you love fucking anime, it's full of ridiculous shit. Ridiculous shit is fun. But yeah, that's I said, okay, I think we could leave off Ned a little bit. I think unless you still have some Ned backed up. Do you have anything left?
Speaking also as a bald man, that wig is terrible. That wig is awful. Stop with the wig. Explain it that he has like whatever condition he has in real life, that he lost all of his fucking hair, and just say that that's the fucking case.
David,
because if I have to see that wig,
David, as a bald gay man, are you telling Ned to just be a bald gay man?
Yes. Okay. Yes. Exactly. That's exactly.
Are you paying attention, Sony? Are you paying attention?
You better be.
You better be. You better be. Damn, man. Let's think. Do any other criticisms stand out to you that we haven't touched on?
Criticisms.
I got a quick one. I wish Tom Holland would call her Aunt May, but
yeah,
we can let that. It felt very weird to me that he was calling her May. It made I don't know.
The entire time, yeah.
Yeah, but that's
It's
weird.
weird.
Just me. That's maybe a me thing. Maybe a me thing.
Yeah. The other thing is that there's a couple things that I wanted to touch on. At the end, where he attacks Tom Holland and he gets stabbed, I think if you're gonna make him get stabbed, then you have to kill him. You can't just make that joke of, "Oh, I'm in a lot of pain right now." I feel like that was disingenuous. I didn't want, not saying that I wanted him to die. I would have liked
You're
the
saying
moment
if
a
you're
lot
gonna do
more.
it, do it.
Right, exactly. Don't half-ass it. I feel like they half-assed it. Like they tricked you out again, and it's like, okay,
I'm with you.
why are you trying to force this moment?
Yeah, I got to a point. Don't get me wrong. I thought like it was funny moments when Andrew Garfield told him up. How much pain are you in right now? So much pain. Like, yeah, that's funny. But
Yeah,
I'm
funny.
with you where I actually think the scene is more powerful if you kind of left Toby and Tom there to kind of keep that quiet stare going.
Keep that
going and settle him down. Like, we didn't need Norman to be like, haha, stabby, and then the other Spider-Man
Right.
like, okay, but now we stabby and we're done. I'm
Because you could
with you
easily,
there. But I do want to say
could
that
easily
was, to
had
me,
Toby like web his hands and he grabs it.
that was the most powerful moment of the film for me, though. Was actually when Toby caught the glider.
Oh yeah.
Look, no, this is sometimes the best script writing and the best screenwriting is keeping it as simple as possible. No words, only a look. Caught the glider and
show, don't tell.
Show, don't tell. All it took was a look for Toby to disarm Tom's Spider-Man, and I thought that was very powerful
Tom
and
knew
very
at
well
that
executed.
moment. You could see it in his fucking face.
Exactly.
Like, they didn't even like nod or like shake their head or whatever. He just instinctively knew, all right, I'm going overboard here. That's not what Spider-Man's supposed to be.
Exactly. We have an interesting comment from my buddy Andy here. I think it'd be cool to read this. He says, I heard that the plan was to actually kill off Toby, but Feige saw that both Toby and Andrew were doing so well that he decided to let him live and shelf them for possible future projects. How do you feel about that? Do you think this is where the Spider-Verse stuff needs to stop? I'll say this. If you're going to bring them back, you should just let them do their own films. You can't. You have to let Tom be
that's
Tom
what I'm
now,
gonna say.
or this ending doesn't make sense. This ending does not make sense if you go right back into this intergalactic, interdimensional Avengers. Like, so I'm down. Like, if you want to go make the Amazing Spider-Man 3 and you want to go make Spider-Man 4, fine. Honestly, fuck it. I'll watch a Spider-Man movie every year. 2022, give me Toby. 2023, give me Andrew. 2024, give me Tom Holland. Fuck it, do it, Sonny. Sony, it's a cash cow. Just make them half-decent films and I'm a happy customer, okay?
And I feel like this is the way that you could do it, too. I think this was the perfect way. They all went back to their own universes. And if we got to see, I would love to see after all these years. And if they got fucking competent people to write The Amazing Spider-Man again. But I don't think Andrew Garfield will want to do it.
I don't know, man. He looked like he had so much fun, which is one of my favorite things to see.
He did.
He had the most fun in that movie. It was such a joy to see, man.
You could tell he was having a fucking blast doing it. And then it's a lot of fun if you watch any...
Can we talk about Big Brother Toby? Yeah. How perfect a decision this was for this character. Again, that like he comes into the film almost at like he's the big brother. Look, the
creepy youth pastor.
Yeah, exactly. But look, like generally the court of public opinion holds Tobey Maguire as the GOAT. He's seen as the best Spider-Man. Just not everyone agrees with that, and you're entitled to your opinion. No one is invalidated here. But it very much felt that way when he was sort of not just giving advice to Garfield Spider-Man, giving the advice to Tom Spider-Man. And one thing I really liked is that, look, Spider-Man 3 dropped the ball when it comes to the Raimi films, But what I did really
Oh,
love
yeah.
about this particular film and working with Toby is they didn't act like they were ashamed of Spider-Man 3. In fact, they took the most
Yeah.
important parts of Spider-Man 3 and implemented it into Toby's character
Mm-hmm.
here, whether it be Harry dying in his arms, or whether, like my buddy Andy's bringing up here, he was able to help Tom because he understood the rage because of what happened in Spider-Man 3.
Yep.
So I thought that was great because it's so easy to just write off Spider-Man 3, be like, oh, it's the worst one. But the movie treated that movie
There were
like it
good,
mattered.
right,
Yeah.
right, and especially with the Sandman stuff, like he worked with Tom in the beginning to get Electro.
He just
Remember?
because he just wants to
he
go
just
home.
wanted to see his daughter.
He just
He
wants to go
see his
home.
daughter.
But again, Liz, that's just another critic. Lizard and Sandman did not need to be in this film.
No,
There were just times where it felt
Man.
like they were kind of in the way, and all they were doing was taking screen time away from Jamie Foxx, Willem Dafoe, and Alfred Molina, who absolutely crushed it in their roles.
it.
If you had kept it maybe like evenly chopped, one for one, like for every like big villain you had a Spider-Man,
they had one.
yeah, I think maybe that could have been.
But then who would you pick for? Well,
Who would I
pick for Tom?
put with who? Goblin would go with Tom. But then again, no, because Molina was on our side at the end, so maybe we
Right.
did need a little bit of extra firepower on the villain side. So I could kind of
Well,
see why that was worked in.
what kind of also bugged me too was that we had it was 5 villains,
Yes,
and
but
this
like
is
Doc
as
Ock
a
is like
comic
half.
book
Doc
person.
Ock is like half. You know,
Right, but as like a comic book reader, I immediately thought, okay, once all the villains got there was the 5, and I'm thinking, okay,
Sinister
there's
Six.
got to be a 6, right? And that might have just been my head being like, getting to thinking about it too much, but I wanted that 6th villain. Who was it going to be? I couldn't tell you, but yeah, it's that's one of the things I was waiting for. Not that it was a bad thing that there wasn't another villain. I wouldn't have wanted them to shove in another villain, but that's just where
Where your head was
went.
at. I mean, because look, you've been reading the comics your whole life. The Sinister Six is a big deal. The
Right.
Garfield films were actually trying to flesh that out. That
To
was
go
the
for it,
approach
yeah.
of the Garfield films, was to flesh out the Sinister Six. So who knows if Sony turns back and says, "Hey, let's make an Amazing Spider-Man 3." You might get that.
Yeah.
But go ahead. The 6th villain was Ned's wig. Fucking
Imagine it just
Andy Brew.
flew off of his fucking head. It's
Fucking A.
like Squidward's wig. It just flew off and was a villain.
Oh fuck. Oh god. But yeah,
and
man.
One other
I think I know where you're going.
is just the logic of the spell at the end. Like, who remembers and who doesn't, and what implications that has on the greater universe. Because if the way I took it, not only that everyone was forgetting who Peter Parker was, but that they never knew in the first place. Because they didn't even, they could have had, MJ and Ned could have known Peter, but not known that he was Spider-Man. But they make it a point to show that they don't even know who Peter Parker is, right?
Yeah.
So if no one knows anything, how is Aunt May still alive?
Well, it's still dead. You mean?
Is still dead. How is she dead? It's a little bit of a they did very well with the logic, but there was some stuff like that just doesn't make sense. Like, I feel like they pick and chose what they wanted to move forward with. Like, so if
because we were bringing it up. There are ripple effects, right? Like, you see that. Okay, so now that MJ and Ned didn't know Peter Parker, they got into MIT. So it's not as if, no one knows who Peter Parker is, but things just unfolded the same way. It's like, no, because these characters didn't know him, the course of their life was changed. So as you're saying, it's a little weird that they're picking and choosing, like, oh, but that's not the case for Aunt May. Now she has to stay dead.
What exactly? It doesn't quite make sense.
Okay, but hold up. What if the spell only worked on people that were living and already alive, and it couldn't affect the dead?
I mean, then how does that work? Because if between Aunt May and like Happy and stuff, they wouldn't have gotten together if he didn't know he was Spider-Man. If she didn't know he was Spider-Man, because they were working together in Far From Home, and at the end, you clearly saw that Happy knew who Aunt May was and that they had that relationship. But also the other thing, at the end, when if Happy had a relationship with Aunt May, he would know who Peter Parker is. He might not know that, that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, but he would have that passing knowledge. If he grew up with Aunt May,
I'm hearing what you're saying, but I almost feel like, and maybe it wasn't explained as well, but it's like, it's more like he's just like this ghost walking in a world that like equated him out of the picture. And like when you think about it, since like he's cut ties with everyone, so it's like, how do I put this? It's like it's not that Happy doesn't know Peter Parker anymore. It's that the spell has altered his perception of the past. You know, because like maybe it's not possible to actually write Peter out of existence, but you could write him out of people's memories.
So then, but if you just write people out of his memories, then what you were saying before, there would be no ripple effects.
Yeah, and that's kind of where we hit the clash. That's where I'm with you. That's kind of where we hit the clash. If it was as simple as manipulating people's memories, the ripple effects wouldn't be there.
MJ
but the ripple
still wouldn't
effects,
have made it into MIT, but
exactly. But the ripple effects are clearly there. By the way, the whole Ned thing is taking off in the chat. We got Wizard Ned for Sinister Six. Wouldn't Wizard Ned just be a hobgoblin?
Well, he becomes Hobgoblin in the comics. Ned Leeds.
Really?
He's a Hobgoblin in the comics. Yeah.
That's
which is why that joke in the movie where he was like, "Sorry, I'll still be your friend. I'll never turn against you and become a villain." That's why I excuse me. I laughed my ass off at that because I knew he actually does in the comics become a villain.
Here we go.
Maybe they do make him a villain.
See, Andy says, I feel like we're overthinking it personally. A spell that makes everyone forget who he is wouldn't have the same implications as something like time travel. Yes, but I also think that's the point we're making, is if it was memory manipulation, like just deleting him from memories, then MJ and Ned wouldn't be getting into MIT still. Like that wouldn't have changed, but it's more than that. He's been like factored out of the equation itself. Like I don't think it's
like
time
forever.
travel. Yeah. Like I don't think it's time travel necessarily, but it's like it's not that just people forgot he was in the picture. It almost seems like
it's as if he never
removed.
Existed.
Like he was removed. But look, I'm not too hung up on that because I'm more excited about the fact that like Tom Holland's going to get this fresh, clean start where nobody knows who he is. Like I'm way more excited about that than I am concerned with the logic of the spell. But we were talking a little bit in the pre-roll about the Venom scene was another example of this.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that was just more fan service. They weren't actually trying to do something with it, but it does disrupt the logic of the film.
You got to make it work because in the logic of the film, the people that started bleeding into the universe were people who knew that Peter Parker was Spider-Man. That was the key. That's the word for word what Doctor Strange said. And first of all, Tom Hardy, Venom, doesn't know who Peter Parker is. He has no idea what the fuck is going on. So why is he being brought to the universe in the first place? And second, I feel like that was such a cop-out for Sony. Like,
let me just posture one thing to that. Is it possible the symbiote could know who Peter Parker is?
they're from a different universe. They wouldn't even know in the Venom universe. And I haven't seen the movies, but from what I understand, it has no at all relationship with Spider-Man at all. It has nothing to do with Spider-Man, and Spider-Man doesn't exist in his universe. So,
yes, it disrupts the logic, but I feel like it's just kind of meant to be fan service. Yeah, that's why I did.
Yeah, of course.
But at the same time, it leaves the consequence
if you're
of
going
the
to put it in the
symbiote being
movie,
there.
right, and that's, I feel like that's such, that was like a contrived, cheap, dumb way to get the symbiote in it, and I don't need another symbiote.
Wait, hold on. Hold on. We got Micaiah Week saying yes, he does. Check the post-credit scene of Venom 2.
Yes, he sees it, but that he sees all that after he gets teleported, right? He gets teleported into the reality.
I've never seen Venom or Venom 2, so I plead ignorance.
I watched the post-credit scene, and from what it seemed like was that reality was written around him. He went into this other thing, and then on the news it was like, Peter Parker is Spider-Man. I don't know. Ask who was that?
That's Micaiah Weeks, who's very excited that I said his name right.
Weeks. Can you do me a favor and rewatch that and fact check for us real quick? Fact check and bring it back to us. I gotta know.
Well, I think this is a good time to actually move into some Q&A because we had one come in here. I got one or two over on social media, and Andy's trying to address something I think we could further address, at least in the form of Q&A. But I want to start with Bubonic Tonic, who's asking, what are your top 5 movie version villains, and where does Bully Maguire rank? By the way, Micaiah's the best, and he's on it. He says, be right back.
You're the man. You're the man.
Oh, wait, I think Andy's punching in. He says the symbiote talks about how he has knowledge from other universes or something along those lines.
Oh, okay.
So the symbiote is what brought him to that point, which makes sense, which is why the symbiote would want to leave a piece of itself behind.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, then that answers a little bit of a...
But to answer Bubonic Tonic, Bully Maguire is the top. We're just going to do Spider-Man villains. So Bully Maguire would be number 1.
100%.
I would put Doc Ock at 2.
Asshole.
I would put Doc Ock at 2. I'd put Goblin at 3.
The original Goblin, not
the original Goblin, not Amazing Spider-Man 2 Goblin. I would actually, I'm going to stick to the cinema versions, factor out into the Spider-Verse. I actually think Vulture is number 4.
Oh, it was great.
Michael Keaton as Vulture was good.
He was the star of that movie.
He was good.
He
stole
was
the show. He was good.
That scene where he basically figures out that he's Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And there's the whole awesome.
He was good. In the kitchen. And for a final number 5 from the cinematic movies, honestly, and maybe this shows maybe a weak point of some of these movies, is most of the time it's lacking a good villain. I'd probably put James Franco's Goblin as number 5, and that's a soft number 5, but you know, they put a lot of time into that character. They built him up. It made perfect sense. He was who he was. All his decision making was consistent with all that kind of stuff. So I put him at number 5. I don't know if you want to do your top 5 cinema villains for Spider-Man.
It's definitely similar to that. Definitely Doc Ock is number 1. Green Goblin. But after this movie, I don't know. They're like, and it seems like part of a good Spider-Man movie is a good villain, if you think about it.
That's why I liked Homecoming more than Far From Home.
Exactly.
Because I didn't like Mysterio.
And you just said exactly. Mysterio was like, It was like they pulled out the rug from under you, and they were trying to do the fake out where, oh, he's a hero from the multiverse, and that was just dumb. Which also, I almost wish there was a moment where like Doc Doctor Strange was talking about the multiverse, and Peter would be like, no, the multiverse was something that fucking Mysterio made up, and that was part of his fucking story. There's no multiverse. I would have liked to have seen like a something like that, some carryover.
Io Makaija's back. He says, I just checked the scene. Eddie and Venom are just chilling when they get wrapped into the MCU with no explanation. And in parentheses, he puts Doctor Strange. But I suppose the way this works logically is what Andy brought up, the symbiote having that sort of other knowledge of other universes. Another question we got comes from Landy120, who's also Land Before Time on Instagram. His question is, I want a ranking of every Spooderman from both of you buffoons. So we did that already.
We already did that.
We've done our top fours. Maybe just in the good spirit of the question, we should flesh out what the remainder, the bottom of the list is.
Like the movies?
Yeah.
Like ranking?
So
you want to go first?
I'll go first. So Spider-Man 2 is my number 1 with Tobey Maguire, Sam Raimi. Spider-Man 1 is number 2. Into the Spider-Verse is 3. This is number 4. And then there's a cliff. Now we've hit a cliff. Homecoming is probably 5. Amazing Spider-Man's probably 6. Far From Home. No. Spider-Man 3 is 7. Far From Home is 8. And then Amazing Spider-Man 2. We've hit another cliff, by the way. He's like, way down
that
there.
movie's garbage.
I never want to see that movie again. Like all the other movies, I could watch them again. That one,
I felt like I wasted time in the movie theater.
I never want to see it again. So that would be my full ranking of all the Spooderman films. How about yourself?
So similarly to you, though a little different, we have the same top 4 and that same cliff after that 4th. Into the Spider-Verse is 1, then 2, Spider-Man 2, then Spider-Man 1, then this movie, and then, like you said, big cliff.
Big cliff.
I would actually put Spider-Man 3 in that 5th spot.
Spider-Man 3's director's cut. If you count the director's cut, I don't know if people know this. There's actually a director's cut, or it might be an editor's cut of Spider-Man 3 on the Blu-ray, which is actually a lot better. It cuts a lot of stuff out and swaps in some deleted scenes. That version of the movie I could put where you're putting it, but the cinematic cut is just so all over the place for me, and it's just I'll leave it at that.
I just like the stuff with. I liked Sandman, even though they kind of like.
But retconning Uncle Ben's death was fucking stupid.
Stupid.
That was just dumb.
But I liked his struggle with the daughter. I liked Peter. He got a little too full of himself.
Yeah.
The city loves him. He's like, and so you get to see that turn where in the beginning, all right, he kind of hated on himself because he was a nerd. Then he got his powers, and things were a little better then. And then he gets kicked down, and then he gets a little better in Spider-Man 2, and then gets kicked down again, loses his powers, or puts that mental block, loses his powers, and then he comes back, and then he's got the girl in Spider-Man 3. He's got the cities for him. He's getting the key to the city hall, and then everything comes crashing down. I think the themes of that trilogy
fundamentally,
that's
the thing. That's part of what makes Spider-Man 3 a big disappointment. Is fundamentally, like, it's actually written pretty well. Like it should work. Exactly. It should work. In theory, it should work. Well, one of the problems with that film was fucking Topher Grace as Venom.
Yeah, throwing in they should have never even
just Harry and just if you kept it at the symbiote being the enemy.
Yeah,
in like him having to fight his way through the whole symbiote thing with Goblin and Sandman, I think it could have worked out much better.
Yeah. And then from there, I'd probably go Homecoming, then Amazing Spider-Man 1, then Far From Home, then Amazing Spider-Man 2, which is just fucking dog shit.
Yeah, that's just... What a waste
fucking
of
Paul
Garfield. What a waste of Garfield Spider-Man.
Paul Giamatti. They wasted Jamie Foxx. They wasted Sally Field. They wasted Dane DeHaan. I'll never forgive you, Spider-Man. It's just not good.
We have another question from B. Abrams, who comes to us with thoughts on.
All right.
It says thoughts on Doc Ock. Liked Alfred Molina, but thought the writing for him was meh.
So I didn't like how he was a bit of a joke. While I liked that they took care of the nanotech, they turned it on its side. I almost would have rather him have.
I wish he was in the lab with the Peters.
Yeah. I wish he was like working with them. Like after he healed I don't think he should have taken off. He had no reason to run away. He should have just worked with the Peters.
He should have stayed
back.
I
would have loved to have seen like him working with Toby and working with even Tom. I would have loved to have
That's
seen
actually what I would have wanted to see. I actually wanted to see Doc Ock work with Tom. You know? I think that could have
which
been
we sort of got with Norman, but that was...
By the way, that would actually, like, what Doc Ock taught Peter in Spider-Man 2 is actually part of what Tom Holland's Spider-Man needed to learn here. You know, that whole lesson of, like, sometimes you have to be steady and give up the things you want the most, even your dreams, which is what Tom Holland has to do. He has to give up MJ, the thing he wants the most.
Yeah.
And, like, you could have had that moment with Doc Ock and Tom Holland. But look, not complaining here. Not complaining here. But I think Abrams does bring up a
save
point.
At the end.
The save was great.
Save at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else? I liked that scene at the end, and this is just totally separate, where he goes into the coffee shop and MJ and Ned are there.
Well done.
And,
so well done. So well done.
And he realized
because Ned didn't open his fucking mouth.
Me.
Because Ned didn't open his fucking mouth, and that whole last scene was just MJ and fucking Peter. Tom and Zendaya. You left them alone, and great chemistry, and the will they, won't they? Will she remember? Will she figure it out? Will Tom be more aggressive? Will he pull it back? That whole final scene between the two of them, I was like,
pulls the speech out, puts the speech back in his pocket.
Right. And I love that he's being steady with it. He doesn't want to make the mistake of revealing too much too soon. It's so.
Like, people are saying that this is the Infinity War of Spider-Man, and I just cannot. I've heard that from too many people, and it's not even close. You can't put this at, Endgame. Sorry, they say it's the Endgame of Spider-Man movies, which I guess it shares some similarities, but it's nowhere near Endgame.
In terms of what? In
terms of like, everything was building up to this, and
he
gets all the
it's not like the old Spider-Man movies were made with this crossover in mind. Okay,
right?
Because if you were gonna say quality, I was actually gonna say I think I like this movie more than Endgame. I don't
really
like it. Yes, I love Infinity War. I think Infinity War is one of the best comic book movies ever. Endgame, I loved it, but I thought it was the weaker part between that and Infinity War. I really did. I think I like this more than Endgame, just for nostalgia alone. Just because, again, like David, like most moviegoers, like most people who love these films and want to talk about them, I am not a comic book reader. I read some comics. Most comics are Batman, or I have a shit ton of manga, but that ain't comics. So it's like I don't have an attachment like to Iron Man, to Thor, to all those characters. But
I don't really read those characters.
But I've grown up on those Spider-Man movies. So to me, seeing the Spider-Man movies I grew up with crossing over meant infinitely more to me than watching all these other characters who I didn't actually care about until I was in high school. But that's just me. That's just my personal taste. I think Endgame's a great movie. I'm not shitting on the movie. I'm just saying I prefer the Spider-Man movie.
That moment was better than anything in this Spider-Man
movie. Which moment?
the on your left moment where
when everybody shows up.
Falcon on your left,
but
and
that's
he
a moment.
finally says Avengers assemble. That was built up by 23 or 22 other movies.
Great, but that doesn't.
There's
listen,
nowhere near it. You can't say this is the end game.
I'm not saying that, by the way. Just want to make it clear. I'm not saying this is the end game of Spider-Man. I'm just saying I prefer No Way Home to Endgame. I prefer Infinity War to No Way Home, but I definitely prefer No Way Home to Endgame.
Very interesting.
But that again, that's just my personal taste.
That's just preference, right? That's personal.
Spider-Man means infinitely more to me than him sharing the screen with 50 other characters who I only started caring about because of the MCU. You know? Whereas with Spider-Man,
I could see that.
there were the movies I grew up with, the cartoon in the 90s that I would watch alongside the Batman animated series. You know what I mean? Spider-Man was someone who was just always there when I was growing up. Not in the comic medium, but as far as television and movies, he was just always there. So I have I have a deeper, I guess, bond with the Spider-Man franchise than everything else in Endgame.
Which, by the way, if you're ever into watching more Spider-Man material, there was a show on Kids WB, and it sounds like, but that's where all the cool shit when we were kids came from. But there's a show called Spectacular Spider-Man. Watch that show, you'll get everything you want out of it.
I think I've seen one episode of that when he has is that the one where he has like a crossover with Wolverine? And he has like a duel. No? Okay. I saw this one Spider-Man cartoon. I was like in a hotel where like him and Wolverine are running around doing a mission together. Yeah, it looks really fun.
Yeah, I think that's Ultimate Spider-Man, but the Spectacular Spider-Man, check it out.
Gotcha.
Spectacular Spider-Man.
I'll have to give that a look. Cody,
everyone on the stream, check out
Spectacular Spider-Man. That's a David Freese stamp of approval, ladies and gentlemen.
Recommend. You will like it if you like any of those like shows. If you like Young Justice or Batman the Animated Series or anything like that, you'll like Spectacular Spider-Man.
Hell yeah. I want to give a special shout out to Cody Goins, who dropped in the chat saying, I'm a new member of the Lodge and I fucking love it. Well, Cody, we fucking love having you here, dude. Welcome aboard, man. Welcome aboard. Please make yourself at home. But David, we are coming up.
It's a nice day at the Lodge.
It's always a nice day at the Lodge, bro. It's always a nice day at the Lodge. But check it out. We're coming up on an hour and a half already, by the way.
Oh my God, really?
Don't these things fucking fly, dude? They fly.
Oh my God.
But yeah, we're coming up on an hour and a half.
All right.
Is there anything that we haven't touched upon that you would like to touch upon?
Let me look.
Oh, he's got his notes, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I got a couple of things. I just wanted to one more time say that he's not Iron Man Jr. anymore. He's actually Spider-Man.
And that's what we wanted, right? That's what we talked about on the podcast last week, that's what was important to us.
At the end of the day, he's finally just Spider-Man.
Just Spider-Man. He no longer has that Iron Man suit. He's now in a Spidey suit where he belongs.
Yeah, and that suit at the end
looks so good.
You didn't really get to see it. It looked fucking phenomenal.
The blue
you get
on
like
it,
a full close-up.
Glow in the dark. It was so cool, man.
Hot.
It's so.
You got
that's
that
all
shot
we wanted
where
to see.
he's got it like with the sewing machine and stuff.
Yeah, dude.
Like, there we go. That's Peter Parker. He makes his shit.
Exactly. He doesn't have billionaire Iron Man.
He doesn't
come
need
give it to him.
the holograms where he's, I'll take this and this and this and this and that. None of that shit. He's making the fucking thing.
That's yeah, dude. That's what we want. Peter's an at-home boy, dude. A DIYer in the purest sense. But maybe since we are coming up on the hour and a half, we've hit all the Q&As. If anybody else has questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. But maybe it's time we get in some closing statements.
Okay.
So would you like to go first, or would you like me to lead this one?
I'll go.
All right. It's all you, bro.
All right. At the end of the day, I feel like what I just said was a good closing. He's finally Spider-Man. He's actually Spider-Man. The movie checked off all the things. There's video evidence of us talking about what we needed the Spider-Man movie to be to grab us, and
It did all
checked
of it.
off every single thing. Every single thing. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. There, even the parts that didn't quite make sense to me, I didn't give a shit about because I at the end of the day, I liked where it went. I liked where they took the characters. I liked the acting was fucking phenomenal. It's the things I don't like are nitpicks. At the end of the day,
I'd agree.
like,
Yeah, same.
and that just goes to show you, like, we gushed about the movie for 40 minutes, and I don't want to go on like a spiel about the internet, but a lot of times you see either it's fucking amazing and it's the greatest thing ever, or it's the worst thing ever. No one likes it. It's such a piece of shit.
It's very black and white. Like, public perception seems to be so black and white, where, like you're saying, it's either the greatest fucking thing ever, or it's shitty and an insult to everything, blah, 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 blah.
It can be this fucking amazing thing that I really enjoyed. I had a great time with it. There were a lot of moments. But yeah, there were things that I don't like. But that doesn't mean I don't love the movie.
Exactly.
And that I didn't have a great time with it. At the end of the day, I'll say it. I loved it. It was great seeing Toby and Andrew again. And now Andrew Garfield can finally go on to interviews and not have to worry about people being like, "Oh, you're in Spider-Man." If you've seen any of those
I've
interviews,
seen them all. Dude, he's such a bad
fucking
liar.
hysterical.
He's such a
He's
bad
terrible.
liar. Oh, gotta love it.
Oh, I'm not in Spider-Man. Yes, you are. Come on. But yeah, those would be my final thoughts.
Excellent. I guess what I'd say, just want to pop in Makaija's final question here, who says, did you guys know the movie references Iron Man Jr. directly? It's in the first Jameson montage. We'll have to check that out. I completely missed that. Did you catch that?
I missed that too.
You missed it? Yeah, I'll have to catch that on my second viewing. But
they
listen,
did do the point thing. That I liked. And if they didn't do that, I wouldn't be happy.
I have one.
No, I'm kidding.
Like, in my closing statements, I'm about to gush. But before I gush, there is one more nitpick that I didn't bring up that actually is near and dear to my heart. Norman should have never said, "I'm something of a scientist myself." He should have.
Yeah, that was just playing with the meme.
The reason why memes are because they capture a perfect moment. You can't repeat the meme. It's not how it works. Like, anyway, they should have just left that alone.
Something of a scientist myself.
But bringing it around. Again, I thought Act 1 was very run-of-the-mill Marvel. Wasn't bad. But I was sitting there like, this feels like a normal Marvel movie. Then Act 2 came and all the villains went back to Peter Parker's apartment. And I was like, this is fun. I like this. This is new. I didn't expect this. We're going places. And then in Act 3, spoiler, Aunt May dies and Toby and Andrew come through the portal. And then for about 45 minutes to an hour, every single shot of the film is near perfect. Near perfect if you're a Spider-Man just wanting
Except Ned and
Spider-Man.
MJ going back through the portal.
Yeah, except that. Yeah, I'm going to block that one out. Suspend my disbelief. But I just find that as Norman's facade. Yeah, it's exactly what it is. I'd agree. But overall, it was such a great time. I do love the film. It has things that I don't like, but that's fine. It's anything. It's like I was saying to you, David. I love you, but there are things about you I don't like. I love myself, but there are things about me that I don't like. Like, that's just life. And I would be disingenuous if we didn't bring up our critiques of the film. But with those critiques, at the end of the day, this film was such a great time. And it did everything you wanted if you were Spider-Man. Like, Toby was my hero growing up. I was 10 years old when the first Spider-Man movie came out. Mm-hmm. And again, Toby was my fucking hero. And seeing him come through as this like complete Spider-Man who's sure of himself, knows what he is, knows what the right thing is to do, wants to help. You know what I mean? Where Tom Spider-Man, part of what he had to deal with is he was kind of always thinking of himself and what was best for him, putting himself first. We were introduced to Tobey Spider-Man, and this is a Spider-Man that goes, oh, you're his friends. I have to help him. I know I don't know him, but I have to help him. The same guy was like, I've been working on this formula for years. Like, he became everything we wanted him to become. And same could be said for Garfield. Finally got his redemption. Probably my favorite shot of the film was him saving MJ. All the scenes between Tobey and Andrew were so fucking beautiful. From the back cracking to the no man, you're amazing. The whole thing, so much fun.
And then them flipping over each other and
exactly.
shit.
So
it was fucking great.
So sick. And then to cap it off, Tom Spider-Man, like you said, is going to be our neighborhood Spider-Man again. Not the intergalactic Spider-Man, not Iron Boy Jr., not the wizard courting Spider-Man, neighborhood Spider-Man. And it's going to be great to see. Cody Goins says, I felt the same way. I think the third act of the film was very captivating and awesome. Look, if I'm just being honest, the third act of the film is the reason I love it. Act 2 is the reason I like it. Act 1 to me was not strong enough to stand alone, but that's okay. It's Act 1. It's supposed to be just set up and taking it lightly. But look, that's all I've got to say, man. I don't know if you got anything left, but all in all, I think they did a killer job, and I would love to see just more Spider-Man in the future. This was the best Spider-Man film in a long time, and it made me happy to see it. Anything else, Dave?
100% agree. I 100% agree. It's the only other thing that I could have wanted would be, and this is just something from like a guy who wants to like see into the lives a little more, but we got a little bit of like what happened after Andrew Garfield's Amazing Spider-Man 2. You could tell that a lot more time went by for Tobey. In that scene when they were like comparing, oh, what's the weirdest thing that you fought? I would have liked to have had them put in like maybe like something we didn't see in the movies.
Yeah, that would have
maybe
been
cool.
like,
oh, they hinted something that, okay, there's more to these fucking people than just the movie.
But I felt they did do that with other things. I felt they did do that with other things. But that would have been a cool opportunity to do it. David, what do you got going on? Oh, I didn't want to interrupt you. You got something else to say?
No. I said that's it.
That's it. Okay. Well, David, what do you got going on, and where can the people find you? Let them know what you're about.
Still talking about Brown Sugar and the Blind Albinos. We're still working. We're getting. Hopefully, this gig is panning out. Maybe we can see a return. I guess I'm also on Twitter. If you want to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and you can hear my opinions there. That's it.
There we go. And if you're curious, the music you're hearing in the background right now is Brown Sugar and the Blind Albinos. You can find them on Spotify. I've got their link in the episode description. Cody Goins is saying, do you have a Twitter, Dave? You know what, David? I'm going to actually hunt down your Twitter and drop it in the chat. I do
have a Twitter, but I'm in the midst of revamping it to where people will actually want to see what I have to say. It's going to be more of I'm trying to make a new thing of like just reviewing more things. So let's leave that for another time. I'll throw my Twitter in the Lodgeverse.
I did hunt you down. Can I just drop it for the homies?
You hunt me down? If you want, yeah, sure.
All right. He's laughing. He's laughing. I know. Here's David's Twitter. His band, the Spotify link is in the YouTube description. You can hear Brown Sugar and the Blind Albinos anytime. I love listening to you guys when I'm working and on the grind. You guys are great to listen when I'm working out. So Brown Sugar and the Blind Albinos, David Freese, everybody. If you're on Twitch, please stick around. We're going to be doing a raid. Raids are huge. Yeah. All right, everyone. It's been real. It's been fucking real. David, you're the man. Thanks so much for coming on. Big shout out to everybody. Big shout out to the Sages of the Lodge. Our newest follower, Marcus Devil May Cry. Newest guy over on YouTube, Cody Goins. Thank you guys so much. Thanks for hanging out in the lodge. We're closing it out. Peace.